This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 32, an interview with Pamela Muldoon of the Content Marketing 360 podcast. Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is August 15th, 2013. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for episode 32 of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes and also on Stitcher, so if you're listening to this episode on the blog, you can click on over and subscribe. That means you'll get new episodes automatically delivered to your computer or your smartphone or your tablet or your listening device of choice. And if you use a different app for your podcast listening pleasure, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link in the blog post. First of all, I want to give a wow and a huge thank you. I have just checked my analytics over at Libsyn, and the Content Marketing Podcast has racked up over 7,000 downloads in 59 countries, and I am in awe of that. I am just amazed. And I want to just say thank you to everyone who is listening, everyone who has listened and come back, and especially everyone who has recommended the show to friends and colleagues. I so appreciate your support. And anything I can do to make this show better or more relevant or more useful to you, please give me a heads up. And that's not just lip service, guys. I've already implemented some suggestions from listeners, and really, I think of this as your show. I'm just here to facilitate and to make myself available. Also, I want to go ahead and make an announcement today. It's something I've alluded to on earlier shows, but I'm just going to put it out there. I am working on a book. I'm going to start writing a book about content marketing. Actually, I have started. And, this is something that has been in my head for a long time. And a couple of months ago, I decided I'm going to do it. And I kind of petered out. I didn't actually accomplish much. But my conversation with Jay Baer a couple of weeks ago really kind of got the fires lit again. So I am determined to write this book on content marketing, and my goal is to have it either published or well on its way to publication by the end of the year, by 2013. Not sure what the title is, but I'm sure that will come to me as things roll along. Anyway, I will keep you updated, and if I flake on this project, you have every right to shame me on whatever form you find fit. You can write quitter on my Facebook page. You can write nasty tweets about me, and that will, that possibility will keep me motivated. So thank you for holding me accountable. Okay, last week we responded to a listener question. A gentleman emailed me to say that he enjoyed the podcast, which was lovely. And he also shared that he is a content marketing consultant like I am, and as I suspect many of you are. And he was looking for some advice on how to grow his business, on how to get new prospects in the door. And I was, of course, happy to oblige. So last week we shared 10 tips for growing your content marketing consulting business, plus an extra bonus super secret ninja trick that I use for making a positive impression and being memorable. So if you happen to miss that episode, feel free to click on over to iTunes or Stitcher or the RSS feed and get all caught up. So that brings me to today's topic. Today, I am delighted to welcome another fellow content marketer and a fellow content marketing podcaster to the show. We are going to be talking with Pamela Muldoon, host of the Content Marketing 360 podcast. Before I get to this interview today, I need to apologize for a technical glitch that we've been having with these interview episodes. I do my interviews via Skype, and I use a program called Call Recorder. And I've noticed in the last few interviews, most recently with Jay Baer, when the final MP3 is released and cut and produced, I noticed that the interviewee, the person I'm talking to, sounds fantastic, but for some reason, I always sound like I'm talking into a tin can. And at first I thought it was my headset, but then I tried swapping out headsets and I have the same problem. So I'm not sure exactly where that is happening. I am trying to locate the bug and fix it. And I am hoping that today's interview will have that fixed, but I can't be sure until we finalize the MP3. So I apologize for the glitch. I am working on it and we hope to have it resolved soon. Okay, on to today's guest. Today I am thrilled to welcome Pamela Muldoon. She is the principal of Next Stage Media Group, a marketing consultancy firm with a specialty in developing strong audio content for agencies and business clients. As a former on-air personality and copywriter, Pamela blends the best of traditional radio techniques with the opportunity of the internet to leverage audio as a strong content strategy. Pamela is also host of Content Marketing 360 Radio Show, a weekly podcast featuring top thought leaders in marketing from around the globe. She is a regular contributor to PR Newswire's Small Business Toolkit website and can also be heard sharing social media and tech tips on News and Views, WCCO Radio in the Twin Cities, as a regular expert guest. And that is just a small portion of her resume. She is quite an accomplished lady, and we're thrilled to have her on the show. So without further ado, here is my interview with Pamela Muldoon. Hello, Pamela. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you. Thanks so much. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of content marketing, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and about Next Stage Media Group?
Absolutely. Thank you again for the opportunity to share a little bit about myself. I think a lot of marketers have taken a very, very circular framework in terms of getting where I am today. I run my own agency or consulting firm, Next Stage Media Group, here located in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota. And before that, though, I had worked in radio broadcasting to financial services marketing to airline marketing and reservations training, and done all sorts of public speaking, presenting, and landed in 2006 my second layoff in a 5-year time frame.
Oh, dear.
So for anybody out there who's gone through that knows exactly what I'm talking about. You kind of have this life-changing moment where you decide, do I want to do this again? Am I ready to dive back in and get rejected all over again? Because I don't know if you remember, Rachel, but back in probably the early 2000s into the mid-2000s, marketing was not the sexiest position to have.
No, Mad Men days were long gone.
Absolutely. And of course, anytime a financial crisis or challenge happens to an organization, and of course it was right at the verge of the major recession that we definitely all participated in some way, shape, or form, marketing and training tend to be the first to go. And of course, I had the double whammy. So that's when I started Next Stage Media Group, or the first iteration of Next Stage Media Group in 2006. And now fast forward here to 2013. I work with a couple of companies here in the Twin Cities, as well as keep my company, Next Stage Media Group, alive and active with content, podcasting, and consulting.
Great. So tell us a little bit about how you came to evolve into a content marketer. What first drew you to content marketing?
It's an interesting question. Sometimes you don't realize your own strengths or your own, skill set until later. And what I mean by that is, a lot of us in marketing, even though I have a 20-plus year background in marketing, in the 2007, 2008 is really when I dived into this somewhat new concept called social media. Right? And got onto Facebook, started where I've been on LinkedIn since 2007, realized the potential for my clients, which were mainly small to mid-sized businesses in my consulting practice. And about, the first content marketing world was 2011. I would say it was probably somewhere between 2010 and 2011 that it kind of hit me, like, wait a minute, because I started podcasting in 2009, and I realized even then, owning your own media was extremely, not only important, but an exciting opportunity for the companies that were willing to dive in. So that's when I started to see the concept of content marketing hit my radar. And around 2010, 2011 is when I switched from being a quote unquote social media marketer to a content marketing consultant and marketing professional.
Absolutely. Just made a similar switch myself, so it seems to be the path.
Well, it was really interesting, Rachel, because one of the personal frustrating elements was I would get asked by business owners at the time how to do social media.
Yes.
And and I finally said, okay, we have to stop this conversation of doing social media. It's a bigger conversation. It's
Yes.
wrapped inside of something bigger. So I knew for my audience, sometimes you don't realize innovation is when you start to say the language before they're even aware that that's what they need, if that makes sense. So that was really a lot of my sometimes personal frustration. Good things can come out of that, I think.
Absolutely. I think the turning point for me was the 100th time someone asked me, what's the quickest way to 10,000 fans on Facebook?
Right. Yes. Unfortunately, we still get some of those questions, I think, but it is definitely the tide is turning, and the content marketing, I guess, revolution is definitely taken hold, and it's an exciting time for sure.
Yes, absolutely. So kind of getting into more of the nuts and bolts. The term content marketing has been around for a while, and it seems everybody has their own definition of it. How do you define content marketing?
It's a great question. It is one, you're right. We see a lot of different definitions. At the end of the day, I try to keep things very simple. And of course, marketing is still a key piece of the content marketing definition. And anytime you start talking about marketing, you're attempting to create some type of message to reach your consumer, your audience. And when you do that in the content marketing space, it's really now about, how does your audience intake information? So for me, the definition of content marketing really is somewhat similar to how Joe Pulizzi frames it from Content Marketing Institute, that it's about distributing the relevant and valuable content that you have in your organization. And that's part of the marketing process, the content. And then, of course, with the hope that they will not only engage with you, but eventually be acquired as a consumer. I think sometimes that marketing and sales piece gets missed when we talk about content, because we live in such a world of giving first, which is wonderful. And we live in such an information and education driven element when it comes to content. But we have to remember, as a business, we are still marketing to a consumer group, whether it's B2B or B2C. And at the end of the day, end of the quarter, we have to check our numbers to see if it was actually profitable as well.
Absolutely. So the content marketing, as you define it, as many people define it, it's nothing new. It's been around. I mean, the days even before the internet, companies were doing helpful newsletters and magazines and things like that. Why do you think it's suddenly so important here in 2013?
It's an interesting time. I think we all ask ourselves that question a little bit, yet at the same time, if we just stop and think about our day-to-day interactions with how we as consumers, that's a lot of times what I will do is just kind of stop the madness and kind of pay attention to what myself or maybe my husband or my kids or, my friends are doing in terms of purchasing power. And, we really have in front of us with our mobility of iPads and tablets and phones and, of course, our laptops and desktops to be able to seek out information like never before. So that is really, I believe, the impetus for why content, regardless of size of organization, is such not only important, it needs to be an integral part of how you move forward in your marketing plan. Your audience is out there seeking and searching. And my question to my clients or my prospects is always, but are you out there to answer their questions?
Yeah. And speaking of clients, so when someone comes to you to seek out your services, how does that conversation start? Do they start with, we need a content marketing strategy, or does it start more on a more basic terms than that?
Oh, Rachel, I wish it would be that way.
Wouldn't it be nice?
I think it'd make everyone's, all the content marketers' lives just a little easier if they spoke our language. But again, kind of going back to our previous point, we live and breathe in this, right? So for us, the concept of content and marketing married together is becoming a somewhat natural part of the conversation. Not so much when you're dealing with, especially smaller to mid-sized organizations that have a lot of activity, a lot of attention. They aren't necessarily focused on just the marketing piece. And it often happens, as I mentioned before, they want to do social media or they want to start getting into this mobile marketing, or really it does become sometimes basic marketing questions. What are the best ways to reach my audience? Is my audience out on Facebook? Is my audience on Instagram? So at least even though we can't answer those questions in those initial conversations, it can be a great inroad to deduct, well, what are you doing currently from offline to online, and then start to connect the dots to what we refer to as more of a content marketing strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was actually talking to Jay Baer last week about his new book, and we were talking about this fundamental shift that's being required, going from just blasting out the same old marketing messages over and over into the more utility, to put it into his terms. How do you approach that change when these clients come to you? How do you kind of gently guide them into this new direction?
I think we both have a great teacher in Jay Baer.
Yes.
I've also had the pleasure of recently interviewing him for my podcast, and his book is one that speaks to me on such a level that, again, sometimes you read words and you're like, yes, exactly, right? That's what we need to do. And he frames it so well. And basically, it's the idea of providing the information. It is interesting, and one of the challenges, I know I asked Jay this, I deal with this, Rachel, I'm totally assuming here, but I'm guessing you might be dealing with this, is we still have a fear-based kind of business society of providing information that a lot of companies think is too much, right? If we give it all away, they're never going to pay for it. Or my competitors are going to, see all this great intel. And it is really, that is probably one of my biggest challenges to overcome when it comes to talking about the idea of content. So, the ones that really understand it are the ones that are really having more of that give first conversation. They put themselves in the shoes of the consumer. That is something I try to get my clients or prospects to do as early on as possible. I want them to literally visualize, how is your consumer seeking information? If they can start to see that they're dialing into Google or to Bing and they're typing in the search activity and they're not coming up, right there's a problem. There is a challenge there. So, and I think too, where even Jay mentions this, I've heard this from a number of us, of content marketing experts around the world. Let's go for a small win. Let's not, tear down the whole tree at once. Let's just take one little branch at a time. And I think too, if you can create some type of a content tactic inside of a small strategy that just gets the ball rolling, you will start to see that the information you provide can be received very well. And of course, it's a nurture process, so it's not going to happen overnight. So this is not an easy challenge ahead of us, Rachel, but it's one that I think we have to shift towards because our consumers are really demanding it of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So Pamela, with your team at Next Stage, you work with a very diverse group of clients. Do you find that certain industries are more amenable to the content marketing approach as opposed to traditional, or that it's more applicable to certain industries?
It's a great question, Rachel. I think in general, my husband happens to work in manufacturing. Has been in his area for a number of years. So we have this conversation at the dinner table every so often, Still, we have some of your atypical industry conversations. Some of the more traditional industries, manufacturing, blue collar, et cetera, they don't necessarily as an industry gravitate, but I don't think personally that it matters industry, because every consumer, whether you're purchasing a large product that has a 2-year life cycle to perhaps purchasing the latest in Bic pens, right? We go out and we do search for information. So when we don't see that information, whether it's about the company, the story, they're just not going to be seen in the same way that their competitors are. Now, I think what's really interesting about this, Rachel, is we have seen industries across that we would probably assume would not be as involved in content do a fantastic job. And of course, I always think of my friend Marcus Sheridan with River Pool and Spas in Virginia. And of course, he's developed an entire marketing practice around the fact that he just simply answers questions, right? Now, what I think is more important than industry is the attitude inside the organization, right? We've seen this with Blend Tech over the past few years, to rattle off an example that is not new, but definitely who would have thought, right, that a blender could have become one of our top content marketing ideas, probably, what was that, in 2011? So It really isn't going to matter so much as industry. You all have a story to tell. You all have great content. I know the company my husband works for example, they work with other professionals all over the globe in Russia and France and building these amazing cranes. And he tells me these stories and I'm just enamored, even though I have no idea what it is, right? Like, that sounds awesome. You should have it on your website, right? And so I think, too, it's more of a top-down attitude, and I cannot stress enough that we really do need CEO or high-level executive buy-in because, again, it's about sharing the story, sharing the information, and it's okay to tell people some of your secrets because sometimes the secrets are what bring more loyalty and excitement to your brand that, of course, your consumers will latch onto as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you mentioned a little bit about the initial approach. It's got to start with the audience, with the consumer, how they take in information. Going from that standpoint, what would you say, just from a big picture perspective, what does a successful content marketing program look like?
I think just in terms of basic framework, like with everything, we have to start with the business objective. What is the actual objective? I think one of the mistakes, especially my smaller to mid-sized businesses make, and again, part of this is resource capability, but they dive in, right? People get very excited. The shiny object syndrome is alive and well in the United States and beyond. So I think it's really about kind of taking a breath, taking a step back, and what are your business objectives? Are your business objectives, for example, to increase lead generation by X over the next quarter or the next year? Are your business objectives to decrease the cost of your customer service or perhaps your customer service cycle? And so when you start to really deduct how your business objectives can be connected to the information you share, now you have a more focused and focal point in which to create a content marketing plan. And that also should assist you with where you put your information, where the content needs to lie. Right after business objective, it's really where is my audience intaking their information. It isn't about being on everything, but really thinking that through. And so for just to give you an example, Rachel, I currently work for a for-profit college, a career college system here in the Twin Cities, and we have a couple of different personas that are our sweet spot per se, and one of them is, say, the working professional that wants to go back, online degree, master's, that type of thing. Well, creating a content strategy where they are active on LinkedIn through SlideShare, great content on the website. Those are things that really we start to think about in terms of a good content plan for that particular group. But then we switch over to our high school segment. Totally different audience, right? Where do they hang out? We know that they are out on the Facebook and Twitter game, but really they're all about the 6-second Vine, right? They're all about this little thing called Snapchat. So how can we start to create content? Of course, now we're talking about more visual elemented content, such as videos. So really, again, by business objective, which could be lead generation or awareness, and then deciding where's the best place. And the place will help you guide to the type of content, visual, written, or in this case, Rachel, perhaps audio as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I hear you when it comes to the shiny object syndrome. I think we're all a bit relieved that Pinterest has kind of settled in because everybody wanted to be on Pinterest for a while.
Oh my goodness!
It's like no, you produce plumbing supplies. You really don't need to be on Pinterest.
And it's interesting. Pinterest is an interesting animal because, again, this is where it's, I think, extremely important that an organization see the big picture, not just Pinterest in and of itself as an example, but what is the intention? So, we deal with this quite a bit. The traffic, we hear the numbers, right, Rachel? It increases traffic to your website 400% or 600%, whatever the number of the week is. But here's the funny thing. It will only drive traffic to your website if some of those images are actually connected to your website, right?
Yes.
So now you have to get your web development team involved before you actually launch a Pinterest strategy. And it's those connecting of the dots that I think a true content marketing strategist can bring to the table. And now also say, we're not doing Pinterest or we're not doing social media. We are actually creating content that could be active out on Pinterest, but what is the end result that we're looking to achieve with this medium?
Absolutely. It's interesting you just mentioned traffic to the website because I'm seeing a lot of blog posts lately with titles like SEO is dead, long live content marketing. Do you think content marketing has kind of supplanted SEO?
Oh gosh, it's funny. My SEO friends, we have kind of this I guess this fun little argument back and forth, and it's kind of where your passions kind of lie, right? Where your initial passion came from. Now, again, SEO is not dead. It's just different, right? And I think content has driven a lot of that difference. So, for example, gosh, not even 10 years ago, we could put in a specific keyword, short or long tail, maybe a key phrase. And we could pretty much, the thing is that you could do a lot of work on the back end to make yourself come up on page 1 or in the top 3. There was a lot of maneuvering that could be done. As this content marketing revolution does evolve, we're finding that we as content marketers and storytellers have more of an opportunity to play in the SEO game. It's funny, I'll literally watch myself type, I was looking for some items this morning in Google, and I'll type complete sentences, Rachel. I don't know about you, right? And when you type complete sentences, it will the content that actually provided that sentence somewhere will come up. And of course now with Google Plus, as Google for an example, Google Plus and the SEO capabilities that are connected with that and with your network, it still is very much an important part of the content process. But I like to say that we're just more married to each other, and we have to work together now more than ever before. Good content is still very key to the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we see a lot of these success stories, when we hear about, here's an example of a brand that's really succeeding with content marketing, we tend to hear brands like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, maybe Caterpillar. Do you think that some small to medium-sized businesses are intimidated by that and say, oh, well, that's fine for them. They've got huge budgets and dedicated teams, but, I'm a solopreneur working out of my home office. Is there room for me in the content marketing playing field?
I think there is a little bit, perhaps it's intimidation, or perhaps I like to say in some cases it's an excuse. And what I mean by that is it all comes back to resources regardless. And I think we would both agree that if you're a small business of, say, 10, 20 employees, and you start comparing yourself to a Caterpillar or a Coca-Cola, you're definitely dealing with some different marketing resources. Absolutely, without a doubt. So then it's about working with what you have where you are. And it could be, again, it's about getting control of not allowing the shiny objects to attack you, but to really focus in on some good content that you, either yourself or perhaps one or two individuals and yourself inside your organization can assist with. And I think there is extreme power for content marketing. I actually think, I'm a Minnesota farm kid, Rachel. So
Okay.
I think it's the time of the small business and the small business experience to be able to share their value proposition. And an example that I found in the past year on the web is a company called Birchbox. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
They actually provide beauty products, and they allow customers to sample beauty products, and it's really the beauty space is their niche. Small company, not your big Coca-Colas or your big enterprise, but they do some amazing work with content because they understand their audience. Their audience not only wants to try and sample the products, they want to know how to do it. So they have this amazing YouTube channel with tips and tricks, and they really use their entire organization. They're right there inside their offices, sometimes right at the desk applying makeup, just things like that. And so they've taken what could be a limiting situation and really took some control of it by investing in some equipment to do the video piece, and then of course getting a few of their vibrant personalities in the organization, uploading it on YouTube, and it's really allowed for them an opportunity to reach their audience visually, which is very important to their brand. And they also I know small businesses are really good at this, and they do a very good job in particular. Guest blogging. Again, sometimes it's not just all about us. If we can leverage our time the expertise of others, we can take on some of the best content with the big guys and still provide some great nurturing and lead gen and, of course, customer service components to our content as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, just a little strategy, a little creativity is pretty much all it takes.
Absolutely.
Like you just mentioned Blend Tech a few minutes ago. It was take something as simple as stress testing your product,
right,
and just create a YouTube sensation.
It was seriously, who doesn't want to see their an iPad, blended in a blender? It's just sometimes the most genius ideas are sitting in your accounting department. You just haven't given them a chance.
Right, exactly. So Pamela, when you were out and about talking to people about content marketing, do you ever run across people who say, "Oh God, first it was SEO, then it was social media, now it's content marketing. In a year and a half we're going to be on to something else." Do you ever encounter that?
Yeah, it does always seem that this is the new latest and greatest and next big thing, and it's that's where I do like the idea of the history of content, right? Going back to from magazines to offline, heck, sales presentations were really content marketing if we want to be, really open about what content can be. So some of our best content has come way before the internet. We just have different ways we have to manipulate the internet process and reach our audience. And so, I'd like to really frame the content history and try to get the fad concept out. It's not always easy because, of course, especially when you attach social media to the conversation, it seems every 2 to 3 months there's a new social media channel or platform. And again, it's about being in front of it enough for the clients so that you can kind of give them a heads up, but let them know that we're going to continue on our path, continue with consistency. Somebody has to be able to continue with the plan in place. I believe in flexibility, but I also believe in the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule. So focus 80% of the time on the plan that you had in place so you can actually capture the data so that you can see if there's a return on your investment or connected to the objective. And then we can continue to look at some of the new stuff. But it's not going to change. So I think that's where we as humans just have to be okay that every day we wake up is a new day. And Mark Zuckerberg will change something on Facebook today. Yes. So doesn't mean we're going to veer off and necessarily unfocus ourselves, but we need to appreciate change as well as continue to move forward consistently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know a question that I get fairly often from customers and prospects, and you mentioned the kind of marathon aspect of content marketing, is they say, "How long am I going to have to do this?" And they say it with the same tone as they would talk about, hours on a treadmill. Right. how long before I'm going to see some results? And I am always kind of at a loss for what to say to them. How would you respond to a question like that?
Whenever I get the question, how long is this going to take? I do ask them to consider investing, a good 6 to 12 months in it as a process. I mean, let's just, really look at this as a process. However, going back to the objective, if you can create an objective that is I guess fairly, easy isn't the right word, but something that you can truly capture with your data, something that can show them the continuity between the writing or the podcasting or the slide share and then connect the dots. So, for example, if you are, we're going to do a slide share tactic inside of our content strategy, understanding that perhaps lead generation is a big piece of this. We want to increase our email subscriptions. Let's watch over the next 90 days how many leads we get from slide share. And of course, there are technical capabilities now more than ever before, right, to be able to connect those dots. Perhaps it's setting up your Google Analytics objectives very specifically so you can monitor on a daily, weekly, quarterly basis so that it's all about keeping the information in front of your clients so that you've set expectations to the best of your ability. Humans are still humans. We're dealing with that from a sociological perspective. But I think it's all about really allowing your client, your business owner, your marketing professionals or department to really understand what it is that they're capturing in data and consistently share that information so they can deduct if it's working and how it actually is a process, and they can actually see the process in action.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Pamela, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about what you refer to as your baby, which
Yes.
is the Content Marketing 360 podcast.
Yes.
Yours was actually one of the very first podcasts to focus on content marketing. So how did that come about?
Well, it's so weird to think that way. It's not even quite 2 years old, and my baby has grown so much. Kind of going back to how did I even start talking about content? It really was, like I said, that 2010, 2011 timeframe where I was starting to teach content marketing to small, mid-sized businesses, and you can only imagine the looks that I was given. They wanted to talk about how do I get more likes, right? So. I realized, I personally have a broadcasting background, and I knew I had been podcasting since 2009. So it was time to really focus in and not only provide, again, I just kind of like a picture in a picture, right, Rachel, where if I can share good content, and I also thought, how can I do this? So I don't have to do all the talking. I can learn from the show as much as my audience can. And then I think the third, but probably most important part was it's kind of like when you talk to your kids and you tell them over and over something, but then they go hear it from somebody else and it became this aha moment. Have you ever experienced something like that, Rachel, with a family member? Yeah. I figured, okay, and yourself, we're all guilty of it. We are all guilty of it. But if I can get other great, credible guests to share the same information I'm saying, perhaps I can elevate the process of education just a little faster, get things moving faster. So that was really the impetus. And then, of course, the next step was where do I get all these amazing marketers? Because it takes a while to build those relationships as well.
Yep. Absolutely. And of course, you come to podcasting with a very solid background in broadcasting. Did podcasting come naturally to you? Were there any habits you needed to change? Anything you needed to relearn?
I was like a kid in a candy store back in 2009 when I decided that I wanted to start I actually did the marketing radio show here locally where I purchased time on a local AM station just to get my wheels back into the broadcast spectrum. And it was quite fascinating, Rachel, because I didn't do podcasting right away. I went right for the traditional sense, but I was getting very frustrated because my traditional broadcasting situation limited me so much, and it was driving me crazy that I couldn't expand my segments beyond 10 or 15 minutes because, of course, we had to go to break, right? Or just to get copies of the audio was quite a challenge because of the radio station wanting to give up that information. So I could edit it and give the interviews back out to my guests, which is one of the value propositions I provide to all of my guests. I give them everything. I give them transcripts, my MP3s, everything, because I want them to be able to use it if they choose to do so. And that's when I started doing more investigation on the podcasting spectrum and realized, wait a minute, I can do this. I can do this out of my living room. And so I really, by just getting educating myself on some of the low-hanging fruit technology that was available, like we're doing this on Skype today, it just really became a natural fit, and it's been a fantastic ride since I decided to move to 100% online in 2009, early 2010. I've been 100% online. Content Marketing 360 is, I believe, my fourth different podcast that I've done, and I also help individuals create audio content and launch their own podcasts. My DJ experience, just in my personal opinion, helped me frame my style as if I was back on the air. And it's been a fantastic way to get back, one of the best careers I ever had. I just had to leave the industry, and now I get to do a little bit of best of both worlds. So it's fantastic.
And of course, with the broadcast, you can only reach a certain geographic area.
Right.
But now you're reaching people all over the world.
Yes, and it's so fun, Rachel. I don't know if you do this where you check your stats where people are coming in, and I'm a hit in Thailand apparently.
Hey.
So it is so much fun. It has just made my world so flat, and I'm also a big believer in, if I'm going to ask others to do what I believe could be best for their organization and content, try new things, own their media. I really want to be able to do that myself with my organization as an example. And for me, because I'm a verbal sharer of content, podcasting was just a very natural place for me. It may not be for, the business owner that's listening, but perhaps there's somebody else in the organization that it is. So it's a great ride. Truly.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned some of the about getting interviews for your podcast, and
yes,
I look back, and your very first episode was an interview with David Meerman Scott. So you had thought leaders right off the bat, honey. So
yes. Well, one of the things that I've been blessed with is the ability to be an extrovert, right? So it doesn't mean I don't have fear. So if anyone listening is like, oh, I don't know if I could ever ask somebody in my industry, I think first and foremost, most people do want to help. And if they, of course, everyone's busy, so they prioritize their time accordingly. But I really dissipated the fear and just said all they can do is say no, right? All they can do is say no. Well, I had worked over the years to obviously build my own level of credibility. I think that was really key to getting some of the wonderful interviews I've gotten. But I also am a big believer of leverage. I mentioned, Rachel, that I'm a Minnesota farm kid. So the idea of networking, building relationships, and working together is one that's just very natural to me. I mean, I grew up on a farm where my dad would have the combine and the neighbor would have all the baling equipment, and they would trade off, right? They would help each other out because, of course, $1 million piece of equipment was not something you could just buy easily, right? And I thought, well, how can I do that? Here's the funny thing. I later interviewed Andrew Davis, the author of Brandscaping. And he reminded me that I have basically a brandscape with Content Marketing Institute, which is what I approached Joe Polizzi in 2011 when he was signing my copy of Managing Content Marketing. And I said, Joe, I have a proposition for you. I'd like to talk about possibly not only getting you on my show, but seeing if there's an opportunity for collaboration. And that was kind of how it all started. And I actually asked David Meerman Scott, while I was having him sign my book as well, The New Rules of PR, if he'd ever be interested in being on my podcast. And he said yes. Of course, I had to get that recorded ASAP. So all I can do is say no, Rachel.
Okay, so make note of that, folks. Go to a lot of book signings.
Yes, I'm telling and I'm a junkie anyway. So I'm not just doing this to stroke egos, though I do understand some of that is helpful. But at the end of the day, I will read all these books, and I have my own little collection of signed books that are my pride and joy. And David's and Joe and Robert's are two of my favorites. So.
Yep. Absolutely. I want to go back to your conversation with Joe Polizzi about partnering with the Content Marketing Institute. How has that partnership evolved?
Yeah, it's so I obviously if you were anywhere near content marketing around 2010, as I said, is when I really dived in. I had latched on to contentmarketinginstitute.com. This is where I went to every day to get my information. I started to really appreciate what Joe was doing. And when I met him in person at the conference, we had actually talked about getting him on the show. And so probably a couple of weeks later, I did that. And then as we were wrapping up, I said, it just kind of hit me like, this is my chance. So I said, Joe, here's the deal. I really want to interview the best of the best. And I know it's going to take me months, possibly years, to be able to connect one-on-one with each of them. I don't know if you're open to it, but I think there's some potential for collaboration. Would you be willing to talk about it? And what I love about Joe and his organization is he's just very open to share the idea. There is no such thing as a bad idea. And the timing was right. They had been talking internally about doing some type of podcast. But again, resources for them are very similar to any other organization. You have to make choices. So it became a really nice win-win where I was able to provide a show of interview guests. And then I just started to tap in and create it as a spectrum of their Content Marketing World Conference so that Pam Kazelka, who is also with CMI, would I'd give her a list of the speakers I wanted to interview. She'd send the email off, introduce me, and the rest, as they say, is history. And it's just been I'm one of the luckiest marketers on the planet. I get to interview these folks and take notes right along with you, Rachel. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
And of course, the next Content Marketing World is coming up very soon.
Yes, it is so coming up soon, and it's been fun to be a part of the inaugural group in 2011 and 2013 here in Cleveland. I'm also a rock and roll girl, so I love that we get to spend time at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's always an added plus for me. But yes, we've got some amazing keynotes. Of course, you mentioned Jay Baer. We'll provide great information. We've got, just so many organizations, and I will also be presenting for the second time. I had the opportunity to present last year on podcasting and audio content, and CMI has asked me to come back again this year and do a similar presentation, not the same, but something along the same lines. Yeah. Very excited.
Wonderful.
Very excited.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Pam, I so appreciate your time today. I've so enjoyed having you on the podcast.
Thank you. Oh, Rachel, it's been fantastic. You do a wonderful job. You're so personable. I really appreciate this.
Thank you. If our listeners would like to find out more about Next Stage Media Group, or especially if they would like to find the Content Marketing 360 podcast, where would they find that?
Very easy. Just pop over to nextstagemediagroup.com, the name of my website, and right there on one big tab, it says Content Marketing 360 podcast, and all of our shows are archived all the way back to David Meerman Scott, and we want to make sure folks definitely check them out. Obviously, I've got my own little selfish reason to check them out. I love getting folks to come learn about our podcast, but truly, the smartest people in marketing, and it's just been a fantastic way for us to share information with our audiences. So please, nextstagemediagroup.com.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Pam. Have a great time at Content Marketing World. And
thank you.
And I look forward to hearing your report.
Excellent. Yes. We will. We may even do some live on the on the ground. I've got my iPad, my mic, and I'm ready to go. So we'll see. We might do some live check-ins on the internet, if there is such a thing anymore. But yes, there are. As soon as it's live, it becomes archived, Rachel. Right? It's
absolutely.
Just kind of. But yeah, I'm actually going to be a bit mobile as well to try out some new audio concepts. So it'll be an exciting time.
Absolutely. We look forward to hearing it.
Thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
a lot, Pam. Have a great day.
Thanks, Rachel. You too.
Many, many thanks again to Pamela Muldoon for joining us today and for sharing her insights on all things content marketing. Again, the URL for her website is nextstagemedia, all one word, .com. And if you go there, you will also find a link to the podcast, the Content Marketing 360 radio show. And she also has a fantastic blog that you'll definitely want to check out. And I, for one, am really looking forward to Pamela's roving reporter posts from Content Marketing World. I think those are going to be a whole lot of fun. Speaking of which, if you haven't heard of Content Marketing World before, it is coming up next month. It's scheduled for September 9th through 11th in Cleveland, Ohio. And this is the content marketing event here in the States, at least. They attract some great speakers. We mentioned when we talked to Jay Baer, he mentioned he's going to be one of the keynotes. Their main keynote this year is going to be William Shatner, and I'm sure he's going to be fantastic. But they've got just great lineup of speakers and breakout events, and I hear it's a lot of fun. I will unfortunately not be going, but if you have the time and the budget, I encourage you to check it out. And that URL is contentmarketingworld.com. Content Marketing World, all one word, .com. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about your audience. I'm talking about everyone who currently subscribes to your blog, subscribes to your e-newsletter, listens to your podcast, everyone who is taking in your content in all its various forms, be that text, audio, video, or interactive. Specifically, I want to talk about finding out what your audience wants from you and from your content. The best way to find that out is to simply ask them. Ask them how they like what you're doing, ask them what they want you to do differently, and ask them what they would like you to do that you're not doing now. And really the best way to do that is to conduct an online survey. And for that, I highly recommend a site called surveymonkey.com. It's a free site. The basic version is free. If you want to pay a couple of dollars, you can get a couple of extra benefits. But it's basically a free website that allows you to create your own online surveys and to share them via email and via social media. So put together a survey, and that will allow you to do a number of different things. Number one, you can gauge which content vehicles that readers are taking in. Say, hey, these are the various things I do. Which one do you do you take in? Which ones are part of your content intake process? That sounds medicinal, doesn't it? Your content intake process. But you could say, do you read my e-newsletter? Do you subscribe to my podcast? Do you see my YouTube channel? And that's always kind of a good sneaky way to let people know all the different things that you do. So if someone reads your e-newsletter, they might not be aware of your YouTube channel. But you can ask them to click on what they're absorbing, what they're taking in, and what you can ask them what they like best about what you're doing, what features they find most appealing, what keeps them coming back, what they would have you change if you're doing something that they might like for you to do a little bit differently, and what new stuff they might like to see for you in the future. And that's a great way to gauge sentiment about projects that you're thinking about. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast and are not sure who would be interested in it, you can gauge that, or pretty much anything you want. If you're thinking about doing ebooks or maybe an online course, you can float those ideas past your audience and see what they think about them. One word of advice, I strongly recommend that you offer some kind of incentive for folks who complete your survey, either a drawing for a really cool prize or maybe even a reward for everyone who completes the survey. And that all depends how much engagement you really want and how much money you're willing to spend. So if you're really hot on getting results from this survey, you might want to offer a $5 Starbucks gift card, online gift card for anyone who completes it. That can involve quite a bit of a cash outlay, or you could pick up a special prize, like I know some companies offer iPads or things like that, something really, really cool that people will want, and then you have a drawing after the survey is complete and give that to one of the participants. But do make sure that whatever reward you offer is something that is of inherent value, something that has value in itself and not just like, a coupon or a discount on your services, because that's kind of contingent on people using your services and it doesn't have real value in itself. And also, once your survey is complete, SurveyMonkey offers you a really nice report of the results that you can use to better serve your audience. And that's what we're all here for, right? So check it out. And yes, this is something that I need to do myself, so thank you for the reminder. I will. So you can all be looking for a survey from me if you take in my content or subscribe to my e-newsletter, because surveys are important for helping us serve our audiences better. Okay, campers, that is it for me this week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Thanks again to our wonderful guest this week, Pamela Muldoon of Next Stage Media and the Content Marketing 360 podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or via the RSS feed or via Stitcher. And if you really, really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review. And also, if you have colleagues who are hot on content marketing and want to learn more about it, I would so appreciate you recommending us to them. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our blog at resonancecontent.com/blog, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social networks. And if you'd like to email me a question to cover in a tip of the week or maybe in an upcoming podcast spotlight, you can contact me anytime at rachel@resonancecontent.com. Also, if you'd like for me to come speak about content marketing to your business or your organization, you can get information about my most current talk at contentmarketingspeaker.net. Again, that's .net, not .com, and it's Content Marketing Speaker, all one word. As always, I like to leave you with a quote, and this one goes out to all my listeners who are in a leadership position in your organizations. This is a quote from legendary advertising genius David Ogilvy. He says, "If each of us hires people who are smaller than we are, we shall become a company of dwarfs. But if each of us hires people who are bigger than we shall become a company of giants." So something to keep in mind as you plan your hiring and promoting for the rest of 2013. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing, and we will see you again next week. Take care.